Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Monday. My name is Jesse Greer and I am the Multifamily and Investment Vice President here at Avis & Young. And to the right of me, I have a very special guest today, Aaron from the Nevada Builders Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Great being here. In fact, this is exciting because Aaron is the CEO of the largest statewide professional organization representing the construction industry and its affiliates.
Yeah, so we're the largest statewide construction industry organization. I have offices in Vegas and Carson, live here in Reno, and we represent the industry as a whole. So commercial, residential, all the subs, and it's a great gig.
That's exciting. So it sounds like you're racking up your frequent flyer miles. You're down in Las Vegas. You're up here in Northern Nevada where you live. Yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic between the two markets from what I see. I mean, what can you kind of extend upon when it comes to the difference between Northern and Southern Nevada?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is with the size of the market in Reno and really an emphasis a few years ago on trying to diversify its economy, they've made some great strides. So when you bring in, massive employers like Tesla and Google and Switch and all these different folks, and it's really had a huge impact on the diversification of our economy. Vegas, while you're seeing some pretty significant growth, 8 million square feet of industrial space and a lot of distribution and things of that nature, it just pales in comparison to what's going on the Strip. Yeah. So the Strip continues to drive Las Vegas's economy. There's $12 billion worth of projects right now from the Raiders Stadium, all the way up to new resorts. So it's an exciting time down there. But they're embracing it. They love to see the growth and they're just, in their mind, it's keep it coming.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Northern Nevada is really diversifying itself as well. Maybe you can talk to that.
Yeah, I think, especially from a housing perspective, just in the last 2 years was the first time in our market that we've seen multifamily permits exceed single family permits. And that's, that's a significant step. I think whether it's boomers downsizing or millennials who either can't afford a product or are, like the flexibility of renting, it's a fundamental shift.
And it's a fundamental shift that needs to happen as well, because when you look at some of the issues that are going on in the market right now, unfortunately, there's some talk about rent control. You're seeing it from states like California, New York, Oregon, and the fear is if it might hit here, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is, to solve this issue really is bringing more inventory to the market, right? And it needs to be not only just more inventory, but it needs to be smart innovation inventory, right? And the problem that you're seeing right now is that when it comes to qualified labor in this market, to get that inventory out there, it's very limited.
No, exactly. So probably 80% of what we're doing now as an association is tied to workforce development. And it's such an issue. Every one of my members will tell you that they would hire, a couple people today if they could find qualified workforce. And so it goes back to that whole dynamic within the school system. And for a couple generations, we've been telling all the kids to go to college and they'll figure it out. As a result of that, we have some data through the Governor's Office of Economic Development that shows that last year between UNR and UNLV, we actually graduated 700 kids with a degree in psychology, and there were 30 jobs. Right? Whereas we needed 10,000 construction workers, where you can go to work after 4 years on the job, you're now journeyman status, and now you're making tremendous wages. In fact, skilled trades in Nevada, electricians, plumbers, so forth, now have one of the highest average wages in the state of Nevada at $110,000 a year.
That's amazing. When you think about all those psychologists coming out with the debt that they're coming out with as well.
Exactly.
Opportunity cost lost, right?
Yeah.
So going back to this issue that we're having as it pertains to not enough inventory, rents are going up. Now, rents are starting to slow down a little bit when it comes to the overall average rent. I believe they only increased by $1 over the last quarter. Now, granted, concessions have gone up as well, and vacancies have slightly gone up. But really, the issue at hand is getting more inventory out there that is needed. But, the problem is this, is land costs have gone up, right? Construction costs have gone up. And even time has been delayed because of the lack of qualified, I'd have to say, individuals in those sub, markets, right?
Right.
So, it's interesting. Is this some of the feedback that you're getting from, your base as well, as it pertains to trying to get new inventory out there?
Yeah, I think if you look at the single family side, right, the average delivery now is about 10 months. Back in the last boom cycle, we were at 6 months, pretty easily deliver on a 6 month schedule. And now, just because of that shortage of workforce, it's driving those schedules out. And in a lot of cases on the multifamily side, it's just the scale of it, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to put up, 300 units in one shot, it's driving a lot of innovation in the space, which is awesome to see.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of taking ideas from manufacturing and trying to bring that into the space. And so, the Innova project up at the Son of Sierra, they actually put in a manufacturing facility on site to build their own trusses and their own wall systems.
Huh.
So really greatly reduce the amount of labor necessary, increase time and efficiency and waste. Likewise, Silverwings project down in downtown Sparks, they're actually bringing in a manufactured product from Boise. It really accelerates those timelines. You have to plan ahead and make sure that you're getting in the queue and getting those processes in place.
Absolutely. And I drive by that project almost on a daily basis, and I think they're up to their third floor now, and it's looking fantastic. I mean, that whole Sparks downtown has just completely changed for the better.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I guess if I were a investor or if I were a contractor looking to come into this market, both northern and southern Nevada, and look to develop as maybe an investor developer, what are some of the feedback that you would give me going into this market?
Honestly, I still think it's a great time.
Yeah.
I think actually multifamily has an advantage from an entitlement perspective than over single family. Single family has such a long drawn out process to get to the point where they can finally put a stick in the air. And multifamily, because it's a function of commercial zoning, the right project, you fit those requirements, you can get to permit so much faster. And that's time value of money, right?
Yeah.
So I think between some of the innovation that's taking place, and then just the continued job growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they projected that we were going to grow 40,000 jobs in 5 years back in 2014, everybody laughed at it. And we actually did that in 4 years, not
That's
5,
amazing.
right? Now they've gone back and revisited, and they're projecting 10,000 jobs for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
In each of the next 5 years. So, between that and the national metrics, there's no slowing down.
Now, do you see, though, that contractors or investors, for that matter, get a little nervous about the Northern Nevada market with the amount of new Class A 80-plus unit inventory that's really starting to hit the marketplace, and more so the periphery of the market? When you look at Northeast Sparks, Spanish Springs, you look at Coldplay, kind of Sub Valley area, and then South Meadows. Have there been any contractors or investors that are starting to pull back on their projects because of, number one, fear of getting to the market in the right time frame, or the amount of inventory that's coming online?
Well, I think, it's interesting, based on the stats you were talking about with stabilization of rents and some of those things in the concessions. I think the challenge is we're still a relatively small market, right? So when you bring on one project of a couple hundred units, you're going to see that kind of short-term impact, right? I think as those things fill, remember, we're still bringing in 5,000 retarees a year into this market on top of the jobs that we're creating. So I think you're going to see that fill in no time. You're going to see, and then that demand is still there.
Yeah.
We're still creating that demand. So I still think, I think it's a great time. I think, the other thing, to your point, for the most part, we've been chasing stuff on the periphery, mostly driven by land costs. Hopefully with the opportunity zone in downtown Reno, hopefully that'll kind of spur a new round of opportunity and growth.
And I think the new initiative that the mayor has in place as well, which is the 1,000 units in 120 days. Now, isn't that in the urban core as well?
Yeah, so it was defined by within the opportunity zone, and it really had nothing to do with the opportunity zone other than the opportunity zone for Reno lies in that downtown corridor.
Yeah.
So kind of from I-80, to the other side of the river, and then from Keystone over to the city limits. And so I think that's it's great to finally see some support from the city in terms of what can they do from a policy perspective to try and drive some of that growth, and it's something that's absolutely needed.
I agree, and it's interesting when you look at the overall economy, right? They say recessions don't die of old age. There has to be something significant of a contagion in the marketplace to draw it down. And I think you and I discussed this earlier. There's really nothing out there that seems to be making people nervous, is there?
No, I mean, as long as we continue to look as good as we do compared to California,
right?
I think we're just going to continue to see that migration and that growth, and especially with the issues they're having this week alone, right, with power outages and fires and their business climate. I think the governor's making some changes, but I think he's still focused on growing this economy.
Yeah.
So I don't see anything happen for a long time.
It's interesting too, because you hear a lot of talk about rent control and the issues associated with the increases of rents, the increasing of the house costs being out there. And I think a lot of those play into the factors that you and I just discussed. Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize, it's not just developers trying to maximize their bottom line. And of course, everyone's going to do that. Right. But with all these costs that are going up, and hopefully innovation will change some of that as well. But I know some of the biggest concerns that we see out there is, the average rents, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how much longer can people afford either the mortgage rates or the rents that they're at? And that's why it's so important to have, someone like yourself, Aaron, representing this industry, trying to get new construction out there and trying to represent the construction firms to get more product out there, because that, quite frankly, is the solution to this problem.
For sure. And we've got some great projects kind of, that are just coming, through that process, right? So Daybreak, it'll be right about 4,000 units down in South Meadows, and it's going to have a great combination of single family all the way to multifamily and attached product. We definitely need that diversification of product type within our market. Lifestyle Homes just got their Silver Knolls project developed. But all that, and again, that one's, for the most part, there is some attached in there, but it's mostly single family.
Yeah.
But that's still going to drive that demand on the rental market as well. So
yeah,
we've got to keep these things rolling.
And it sounds like you actively staying on top of the marketplace. You mentioned so many different projects that we're tracking as well, and I'm sure you have an intimate knowledge with the general contractors and the investors out there. So if someone is looking to come into this market, they do want to increase their knowledge, let's say as an investor coming in to develop, wanting to see who the contractors are, who the subs should be. Aaron, how do they get a hold of you or go about getting involved in the organization?
Yeah, thank you for that. Just nevadabuilders.org. Check that out. It has all of our contact information. You can email me directly. You can give me a call. And I do a lot of those sit downs, right? We're all about trying to make connections.
Yeah.
So let's, I rarely have all the answers, but typically I'll know somebody that I can point them in a good direction. So.
Fantastic. Well, Aaron, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for your insight today.
Thank you.
Have a good one.